Hello guys, Tinangofil here and I'm back with another series review summary. Yesterday's stream felt really good and I can't wait to get into this video with you. Today we are going to try the shorter format as the previous 30-minute video was not as approachable as I want this series to be. So I will be trying to stay around 10 minutes. Again, I want to make sure that I mention all the criticism against these teams is in comparison to the top teams in the ERLs and the correct play, rather than implying that any of these teams are bad in general. Uh, Talking about the drafts of the series, Riddle actually big upset over XL. They won 3 games out of 4. They only dropped the first game against XL. I would argue they lost draft in the first game and then they were much more decent in the other upcoming drafts. JDXL very famous playing with the Varus a lot, and it was very obvious that Riddle has found solutions for this Varus pick, and that I felt like really punishing for JDXL, which like in the second and the third game, despite like this game is going to 40 minutes plus, to me it did not look like this Varus was literally doing anything, and that was like really good from Riddle to be able to adapt in that way. And the last game we went away from the Varus. We brought the Renata out, and it was a bit different, but I still liked the last game on Blue Team a lot more on Riddle because I think XL went into a very heavy magic damage comp, and then they also locked in a Leona. So the longer this game was gonna, I felt like it was never going to be a win for XL. So even though some of these games, like 46 minutes, 41 minutes, look that way, I think that was a lot more because Riddle felt a lot of pressure and didn't really want to close these games as soon as possible. So due to that pressure and a bit of unstandard play, it ended up being like fairly bad when it comes to closing. But I didn't exactly feel like XL was exactly winning these games per se. The first thing we're gonna be talking about is something that happened in game one, which is the way that JDXL used their Herald. As we can see in the game state, XL is fairly ahead. They have 2 kills traded on both AD carries, but there is a CS gap, huge one mid lane. MNS completely outplayed Slowk in this first game, and then we have a top lane lead as well. That's also matchup dependent. Now we see here MNS resetting with an Eclipse, and he's resetting as Xin Zhao is pathing towards mid, and then Xin Zhao uses the Herald as MNS is finishing his recall. This is obviously really bad because first the Herald gold, which basically means the 2 plates and the tower local gold, are all gonna go to Dan rather than to the Jace, which is really bad because Xin Zhao is not crucial to this team comp, whereas Jace is a lot more snowbally, and as we can see, he's so far ahead that he currently has an Eclipse. He's finishing this reset and will come back with an extra item. So if Dan were to give this to MNS, Xin would still be doing the same job. Xin would still be able to go in, he would still be able to use his ultimate, he would still be able to smite objectives, so nothing really would have changed there. The difference would be that MNS would be back on the map after this reset. MNS would be able to play out this dragon, which is the only thing that's up on the map, and this was extremely bad. Now I will talk about some of the consequences, which basically means that because Dan utilized that way and because they didn't time the resets properly, Riddle actually got a timer to push out the bot lane to be able to enter this river and actually contest this dragon fight, because now Akali can contest from mid lane because this Drake is basically ran to way too fast and Akali never got pushed into the second tower. MNS was not in lane. Gwen is actually just TPing right now. Kex has TP. Kryze also has TP in a few seconds probably, but yeah, she's still gonna be second, whereas Kex also can ult coming from top lane while the Gwen is resetting. So this was like a really bad consequence from XL, because if they used this Herald a lot better, which wasn't exactly difficult in this situation, they should have been able to get a free mid turret, probably this Drake, and also force the enemy to be able to do some of the mistakes. Now this is something we're going to talk about here. So as we can see on the map, this is the same exact map state and everything. So what ends up happening here is if the Herald is used between Xin and Jace with Leona hovering between the 2 lanes, and it actually gets pushed deep into the second tower, now Xin, Jace and Leona can enter the right side jungle. Now whether they want to pressure the right side jungle, whether Akali does a bad rotation and dies on the rotation, all of those things are relevant based on what happens. I feel like in this scenario, the worst case that can happen is Zeri joins over the wall with E, and they still have to fight 4v3 because Akali can never join properly. If Akali wraps around, Drake should be dead by then. And yes, as we said, Sion can come towards the dragon, but the problem that is actually created here is that Gwen has TP at this point, because if they waited for 5 to 10 extra seconds for Jace to come back onto the map, they would not have lost any tempo on what's actually happening on the map, because this is the only objective you're playing for, and Gwen would also regain her TP and would already be reset. So all of these things not being done properly by XL mean that they can't close out the game, or not close out, but they can't push the game to an extremely high lead. Like if Jace got this tower and they prolonged this play to get mid tower, push out Akali to mid wave, get the Drake, and potentially dive bot or kill Leon the jungle, this game would have been blown open to a much, much higher degree than what it actually was. And what it actually was is Riddle actually got a couple of kills that kind of came back into the game. I wouldn't say they won the game, but they definitely came back into it a bit. And yeah, they got some ground, which they definitely didn't exactly deserve to and shouldn't have got in this game. Into the game 2, which is actually the only other point we're going to be talking. As I said, I want to keep this video a bit shorter. In the game 2, basically we see Kex pushing out, basically staying up on a wave that's pushing to him, while Dan is going topside. Dan had no bot side camp, so Kex should have been aware of where Dan is. Now Dan does end up going for the gank. Kex miraculously, honestly, survives. But regardless of that, the play itself was punishable by Excel, and they go for it. Now this, up until here, is really good. Now obviously here, Kex is going to be forced to reset, and obviously JDXL's bot lane needs to back off because there is only cross map available, and due to how the jungler started the first path, Excel should very much be aware that Rumble is on the bot side. Now with Drake up, you can be like, okay, maybe Rumble is already on Drake, but that doesn't mean that the bot lane should have freedom to play upwards. Now there's a problem. JDXL's bot lane does not apparently realize this in a way, so now it ends up being a lot more punishable. Riddle actually pulls the trigger on this play. Rumble goes bot lane with Equalizer available, and they actually misplay the gank from the bot lane. Nukes and Fatichan start the fight a bit weird and a bit way too early, so they blow a lot of CC before Rumble is actually dealt to the damage, despite them having a control word in the area. Now, I wouldn't say this was too bad, it was like a second difference, and then when they get to this phase, they actually blow Channeled. Now, the thing with the Channeled, I think, is a bit weird. I would probably not use the Channeled here, and when I'm doing this gank as Riddle, my goal would not be to kill Zamulek or Kikis unless they really fuck up, because what you can do here, if they don't mess up a lot and you don't like just get a free kill, you need to just blow sums. Jhin Nautilus ultimates combined with Equalizer are way too strong of a tool for Varus as an immobile champion to be able to avoid. So in this gank, the only focus that I believe should be done is to blow Zamulek's flash. As long as Zamulek is forced to flash in this gank, you don't really need to get the kill. The kill is not gonna come as a counterplay to anything because Shen didn't die. Now, if Shen ults here, he has no TP to come back to the top lane. Camille is non-reset, she has D-Shield, D-Blade, no mana. Which basically means if Shen goes back top, he's gonna be first into the top lane and he's gonna get tempo for the Herald that's coming, which is what they should be focusing as a consequence to this play, rather than using the Channeled bot, giving Kryze and Dan free time with their top tower, and giving Excel basically priority on the full priority over the top side, where then it will be a lot harder for Riddle to actually face check there. Some of these cooldowns like Rumble ult are fairly low, but the Shen ult is very long of a cooldown. Now, the biggest problem that actually ends up from this play is also that Zamulek ends up trading 1-for-1 with Fatichan, which is really unlucky for Riddle, because then it ends up being a 1-for-1 when you invest this many tools, and you only get Drake, which you would have got even if you just blow flash from Zamulek here. And then even if you don't get it, you don't really care, because Drake stacking here is not a win condition for Riddle, first things first, and then second, this Drake is off tempo anyway. If you start Drake at 7-12, you can never reach the Herald, and now if you give Herald to a Camille comp and the Drake stacking is not actually on time, there is a problem, because you're basically trading first Drake for first Herald, and first Herald on a low plate tower like the top lane is in here, because they're 2v0ing onto the tower. This means that Camille can create a deep side lane, and that Camille can be very, very much accelerated, which is what we saw with the Jace in the previous game. Now, Riddle seems to like mess up this macro concept and really tunnel into getting the kill, and this is the rotation they end up doing after the kill. So we see how the map looks at the point of the gank, and this is what the consequential map state comes. So because the AD carry, Fatichan in this case, dies onto the bot lane, which was a bit unfortunate, he feels the need to go all the way top, because that's the only wave that needs to be farmed, and that's Shen stays bot to pick up the wave that's bot. Now the problem with this map state is you're kind of saying, okay, we need to pick up the leftover waves on the side lanes, but that is not necessarily true, because consequentially, regardless of whether you pick up these waves, you need to also realize who you're putting up against each other. So you have Shen with no TP, no ult, no way to join a topside fight, pushing against an Varus who has his ultimate available, has a lot of items. He has like a serrated Dirk, tier at this point. Like, I wouldn't say too many items as far as like killing Shen goes, but definitely enough items to push out the wave. Shen can never threaten Varus as long as Varus is competent. And at the same time, Jhin can never play 1v1 against Camille. Like, this is completely impossible. So in a scenario where both AD carries have to be hugged with the support, that is not too bad of a rotation. But in a scenario where the enemy AD carry can just sit bot, push bot, and then join topside, now you're creating yourself a massive massive issue. So now what ends up happening is it looks like Riddle here has priority for Herald, but they can never start it because of the bot prio that's happening for blue team. With Varus slowly joining, the other 4 players in a 4v4 should be more than capable of slowing down this Herald to a point where Varus arrives. And when the 5v4 happens, you just completely break off the game because this Herald is just gonna be free now. Shen has no way to join the topside fight. Now, on top of that, you have Jhin and a Nautilus that blew their flashes in the previous skirmish, and more importantly, the problem that I see, the most important part of why I think Riddle should have seen this is because after you unlock Nautilus and Jhin ult, you don't want to place them in the Camille lane, because you open yourself to counterplay on the bot lane. If Nautilus and Jhin in this case are bot lane and Varus and Braum stay bot lane, you can just bring the Rumble bot, use the equalizer properly after you've burned the Psalms as we said before, and then you can just one-shot them and take the bot tower. That way you trade bot for top tower, which creates 2 deep side lanes, which is kind of beneficial for you because you can match what the enemy is doing, and then on top of that you give a lane for the Shen to farm. That's also really beneficial. Now that doesn't happen. What ends up happening is Riddle just tries to get around this area, they are not able to do so, and then the Varus starts moving upwards, which leads to this play. Now at this play, Rumble and Shen already have decided, based off of this map state, have already decided that they need to go bot side and they cannot fight this Herald. So we see that the Rumble and the Shen are bot. The problem is that the Rumble and Shen can't really get a kill on the Varus. As we said, these champions are not really capable of getting to the Varus. He literally just pressed R once and neither of these champions was able to join. While opposite from that, Hecarim and Camille are very much able to get on this no-flash Jhin and completely annihilate him, on top of the fact that Jhin does not really have any resources to stop a dive from happening, and arguably Nautilus does. It's not completely perfect of a situation. Now Slowku starts to move here, but he's not here in time, and this actually should break the game completely wide open for Riddle. I don't think JDXL's draft is particularly great here. I think Riddle have really good answers, but what JDXL have going for them is the ability to play 2 lanes very aggressively and place a pick comp. The Camille, Ahri, Varus, and Hecarim can all utilize things for picks. Braum is a really good secondary engage tool, and what ends up happening is the trio that's sitting in the mid lane in a 1-3-1 scenario while they're trying to shift towards a 2-lane play, the Braum stops any hope of red team being able to engage onto the trio in mid lane. This is why blue team's comp can actually work if the Camille gets sufficiently far ahead, which is why I think that the Herald usage here is very wrong from blue team, because what blue team ends up doing is they leave the Ahri who is following Slowku, so they leave MNS top lane alone against Slowku and they decide not to herald this. Now the reason why I disagree with this is because this is how the mid game would end up looking with correct herald usage. As you blow the top lane tower, you create 1 deep side lane. The bot lane has not created the deep side lane because they can't take the full tower bot lane without herald. That's the problem. This early into the game, the tower gets too much armor and magic resist and you're not really able to clap it. Now here in mid game, if you have this kind of a herald usage, now the Shen should always be in the deep side lane. The reason why Shen needs to be in the deep side lane is because the mid lane, the laner that's into the deep side lane is the one that's unlocked to move. So in this case, Ahri is completely free after pushing out that wave to move. Now the problem is that if they're trying to collapse all the way into the Irelia, right? Let's say Ahri pushes the lane, goes mid, then 4 of them go bot while 1 of them stays to clear mid. The Shen can ult onto the Irelia and protect this kind of a dive while the other 3 people are collapsing from mid, and this can create a nasty situation for blue team. So in this scenario, the Ahri has to be top because Ahri has non-committal pick, which basically means that Ahri, when pathing downwards, so let's say Ahri pushes the top lane, goes mid, Ahri's engaged to find the pick on Rumble, Jhin or Nautilus here for example, is not committal. She's a long range pick tool, which combined with something like an Aphelios ult, can just kill the target first without Shen being able to ult, and second and more importantly without even Shen ulting, she can just go back and then you redo the play when Shen is off Shen's ult on cooldown, because Shen's ult has a fairly distant cooldown. The beautiful part about this situation is that both Camille and Ahri are capable of playing both side lanes. Ahri doesn't lose to Shen, Ahri doesn't lose to Irelia as we've seen into this game so far, same goes for Camille. So because of this scenario, what they can actually do is they can pressure a lot and then try to club this game. Now, if they don't collapse this game with this exact usage, their draft sucks. They're not able to teamfight, they're not able to scale, they're not able to Drake stack. So as much as this play sounds hard because of the Shen ult, it is literally your only method of winning this game. Now them not realizing this, not using the Herald like they should have, and not collapsing downwards is a big problem, and it actually creates a very difficult situation into the later stages of the game, which ends up resulting in basically a lost game, because as the game went on, Red Team was just better at team fighting because the Varus could never actually get to play the game. This is the last thing we're gonna look over. As said, this was meant to be a bit of a shorter video. Hopefully, I conveyed my thoughts into this short wrap of this series. I tried to be a lot more in-depth onto the stream. We talked a lot about laning, we talked a lot about jungle pathing, and I think it's really good to be able to participate in that, because the more questions I get asked on stream, the more interactive the stream, the more not just the community is going to be able to basically understand what I'm trying to say. I will also be able to improve a lot and improve onto my content. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you like it, and I hope I will see you on the next stream. Peace.